Tokina have recently released a host of wide aperture prime lenses for APS-C Sony cameras, including the 33mm f1.4. But is this new lens able to stand up to the tried and tested Sigma 30mm f1.4 DCDN? Well, today we're going to find out. So let's start off by looking at the price. Currently in the UK you can pick up either of these lenses on Amazon for around £270. However, in the US the Sigma is actually $70 cheaper, meaning that in terms of value for money, the Sigma has to pick up the first points in this matchup. As for build quality, I think both of these lenses are actually really nice, and they're both predominantly made from metal, so that means that they feel very solid in the hand. One slight bugbear that I have with the Tokina lens, however, is that after shooting with this thing for a number of weeks and having it in my camera bag permanently, I've noticed that some of the lettering on the lens barrel has started to rub off, which is a bit annoying. Now, although neither of these options feature a weather or dust proof construction, on their website Sigma states that this lens does feature dust and splash proofing around the lens mount, so at least you do get some kind of protection from the elements with this option. When it comes to handing out points though, it is a bit of a tough one, because although I do like the Tokina, I think it's very nicely built, the fact that the Sigma is cheaper and has some kind of weatherproofing, and the text on the lens barrel doesn't wipe off very easily apparently, I am going to have to give the point to the Sigma in this round. Though I will be kind and give the Tokina half a point as a consolation prize. Now, these lenses are very similar when it comes to size and weight, with the Sigma being just 20 grams lighter than its rival. But in either case, both of these lenses feel very nicely balanced on the front of my Sony a6600. Neither lens has any manual buttons or switches, though the Tokina does include a D-clicked manual aperture ring. However, if you're like me and you don't have much use for this dial, then the good news is that you can always switch it to auto mode, marked as an A, and this will let you change the aperture using the back of your camera instead. The bad news, however, is that unfortunately there is next to no resistance on this dial, meaning that you can very easily knock it from auto mode to f16, which can get a bit frustrating. In manual mode, the Tokina is a dream to use. It has quite a firm resistance to it, but it's nice and responsive, making focus pulls super easy to perform. The Sigma, on the other hand, is super inconsistent to say the least, and has a very non-linear feel to it, making landing smooth focus pulls very difficult. So it's fairly obvious that both of these lenses have their problems, so deciding which lens is the winner in this round will ultimately depend on your own personal preference. For me personally, I don't tend to use manual focus all that often, but being able to knock the aperture dial from auto to f16 would just drive me insane. So for me, I would be more swayed towards the Sigma. But I'm sure there are many of you out there that will think the complete opposite, so in the spirit of keeping things nice and balanced, I'm not going to award either of these lenses a point in this round, and instead I'm going to let you decide for yourself which of these lenses is best suited to your shooting style. When it comes to autofocus in good lighting conditions, these lenses are quick and accurate to focus with no signs of hunting. In low light conditions though, both of these lenses slowed quite considerably, and on occasion the Tokina would even hunt slightly when focusing on near subjects. When shooting wide open in continuous burst mode, the vast majority of the shots I took with the Sigma lens were sharp and in focus. The Tokina also did a pretty good job, however there were a handful of images during the burst where the lens just completely lost focus before snapping back on again. This means across the two areas of testing, the Sigma proved itself to be the slightly more reliable option and therefore deserves the point in this round. Switching over to video mode, and when filming George walking towards the camera at a regular pace, both of these lenses were able to keep locked onto him even at f1.4 without any issues at all. When repeating the test but this time at a faster pace, again both of these lenses worked absolutely flawlessly. As for AF noise, the Sigma was very quiet, albeit for a very small amount of whirring. Whilst the Tokina, in contrast, produced quite a noticeable clicking noise, which was picked up by our camera's built-in microphone. As for focus breathing, the Tokina has very little zooming when focusing between near and far subjects, whilst the Sigma has a much more prominent breathing problem, which may be a turn-off for some videographers. Overall though, when it comes to AF performance in video mode, both of these lenses are very solid and therefore deserve a point apiece. In our Bokeh Balls test, both of these lenses created nice round orbs at the centre that turned slightly misshapen towards the edges of the frame. However, on closer inspection, the Tokina's orbs adopt a jagged edge to them, whilst the Sigmas are much more rounded. In terms of general bokeh quality, both lenses offer a nice soft background blur when shooting at f1.4, but if I was being picky, I'd have to say that the Tokina offers a slightly softer bokeh quality, but arguably there's not enough difference to decisively call a winner, so I think both of these lenses do deserve a point in this round. In our lens flare test, both of these lenses suffer quite badly from heavy ghosting and artifacting. However, as you can see, the Tokina provides a slightly worse result than the Sigma. But if this type of thing bothers you, then the good news is that both of these lenses do come included with lens hoods in the box to help shade the front element in harsh lighting conditions. On a longitudinal chromatic aberration test, both of these lenses provide a result that's more colourful than my language. The Sigma displays green fringing at the top and purple fringing at the bottom of the chart, whilst the Tokina creates teal fringing above the area of sharp focus and amber fringing below it. When shooting with these lenses out in the real world though, both of them put in a solid performance and were generally very nice lenses to shoot with. I didn't really notice any AF problems at any point, and both of them work faultlessly with my Sony a6600's IAF and face detection. Though looking through the shots in Lightroom afterwards, I've got to admit I wasn't really blown away with the results captured by either of these lenses. Now as a rule, when I'm shooting portraits, I always shoot wide open at the lens's maximum aperture. However, when shooting wide open with these lenses, the raw images do look very smudgy, and neither option offers the kind of sharpness I'm used to seeing when shooting with other prime lenses. Though that said, it's not like the results were so bad I just wouldn't ever consider using them, and after tinkering around with them in Lightroom, I did manage to improve on the sharpness, and generally after editing I was happy with the end results. One difference I did notice between these two lenses was that the Tokina has a very noticeable vignetting problem, as you can see here, whilst the Sigma didn't really show any signs of heavy vignetting. Though luckily this problem is pretty easy to fix using the lens correction sliders in Lightroom and Photoshop. Now if you're wondering what the difference is between a 30mm and 33mm focal length, then there really isn't a huge amount in it. Now I did forget to get a like-for-like comparison to show you, so you will just have to take my word for it. Now looking at the lens charts, the Sigma lens displays some barrel distortion whilst the Tokina has a touch of pincushion distortion. At the centre, these lenses are practically identical in terms of sharpness and contrast when shooting at f1.4. At the corners, the Sigma is slightly sharper than the Tokina, but it also displays more coloured fringing. When shooting up close, the Sigma has a much shorter minimum focusing distance than the Tokina, and at the centre, again, both lenses are very closely matched in both sharpness and contrast. So with results that are just too close to pick an overall winner, it's points all round for image quality. So at the end of testing, despite the Tokina being able to stand toe-to-toe with the Sigma when it comes to bokeh and image quality, ultimately the Sigma 30mm is the better option of the two due to it providing a more reliable autofocus at a lower price point.